Hello there. Let's try this again. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So today we're going to talk about overcomplicating things and overthinking things and making it way bigger than it actually needs to be. And I could talk about this because, well, been there, done that, do it regularly. Overcomplicating things is simply a way for us to avoid actually doing work. It's actually, it's counterproductive, incredibly counterproductive. It also is a great way to procrastinate. And so when I talk about overcomplicating things, I am talking about the idea of having to see all of the steps before you take step one. And the reason I have thought about this, or I'm talking about this today, is I recently started making sourdough. And I feel like everybody and their mother now makes sourdough, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I really like sourdough bread. This can't be that difficult, right? And I got a starter for my girlfriend probably in October. And it just sat in my kitchen and just like stared at me. And I was like, I'm going to do it. 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 However, every time I thought about doing it, I overcomplicated it. And it became this huge thing that I just couldn't do. I absolutely overcomplicated it. I overthought it, and I ultimately didn't end up doing it. At least not for a couple of months. And so it was probably the first part of December, maybe like mid-December, where I was like, all right, you know what? I'm done thinking about it. I'm just gonna do the thing. And I was like, it can't be that hard, right? Because everybody I had talked to was like, oh no, it's super easy. It doesn't take that much effort. You'll be totally fine. You can do it, right? So I finally talked myself into it. And I think I actually fed my starter for the first time, I don't know, like the second week of December. And I was like, cool, like so excited to make the sourdough bread. And I was feeding it daily, discarding it, feeding it daily, the things you're supposed to do. And I was following the instructions that my girlfriend had given me, following them to a T, right? I was like, I've got this, I'm going to do it, right? However, I couldn't get my starter to actually double in size. It would grow a little bit, but not anything sufficient. And so then she came over one day, she brought her starter, we made a loaf of bread together so she could show me how to do it. And I was like, okay, cool, I've got this, right? So still, my starter wasn't doubling, but I was like, it will be fine. I'm going to make the bread, it'll be fine, right? I ended up throwing away probably 4 loaves, minimum, maybe 5, that never actually doubled, never rose, right? I would go through all the steps and then I would leave it overnight to grow and it would not grow at all. And so I was getting really frustrated. And I was like, all right, you know what? Before I quit this, let me ask for a little bit of help. And so I went to ChatGPT and I explained to Chat what was going on with my sourdough starter. Now, if you don't use AI for anything, you're missing out because it's really kind of a fun tool to just workshop things. Because I know that there are a million ideas running through my head at any given time, most likely. And it was just nice to just kind of get that information without having to search through Google, but to be able to ask specific questions and get responses, right? And so I'm workshopping my sourdough with AI. And it's having me add warm water, different flour to water ratio, right? I had to switch things up a little bit because my starter is different than somebody else's starter. And so I finally got it to rise. Finally got my starter to rise. And I was so pumped and so excited. And I finally got my dough to rise as well. I had to let it rise a little bit longer than the instructions. Because if I followed everything to the T, it wasn't working for me. So I had to modify things. a little bit for my own starter. And so I finally got it to rise, and I said, okay, you know what? I don't actually have a Dutch oven. I had been makeshifting one, and I said, but I want my bread to be good. So I went out, I bought myself a Dutch oven, and I was like, okay, I'm so excited for this, right? My 2 loaves that I made this weekend, incredible. They were delicious, they were beautiful, they were crunchy, they had nice crumble, right? Like, I don't even know all the words, but they were beautiful, and I was so excited, like stoked all day Sunday that my bread had come out so beautifully. Yes, I did use the word stoked. You're fine, right? But I talk about all of this because we notoriously do this to ourselves. We decide we want to start something, and then we don't think the whole process through, or we never ask for help, and we end up overcomplicating the thing that we never actually do the thing that we want to do. It's a thought and process. It's never actually something you do, right? And we do this, again, we do this to ourselves about all kinds of things. And so I want to share some information with you as to how I overcome this overthinking, overanalyzing, procrastination stuff, right? So my self-awareness is incredibly high. I just know. I can check in with myself regularly. I know almost instantly if it's something that I really want to do or not. And I don't have an issue saying no. I do not overcommit most times. There are some times where I get myself into a little bit of a pinch because I feel like I can do all the things because I have extra time, or I'm really good with my time, right? But very rarely. And so being able to check in with yourself and having that very high level of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness here doesn't mean that I'm being critical of myself at no point in time. And I catch myself if I do start to be critical because I can spiral out. Self-awareness simply means I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time with the things that I'm not great at, right? And unless it's really something that I want to try, right? But typically I stay in my lane. Sometimes I feel like I can be crafty even though I'm really not that crafty, right? These kinds of things. So nevertheless, my self-awareness is really high. And so I know where my max is, right? I know when I start to cap out, but I've spent time learning about what that looks like. So I very rarely go into overwhelm now. I constantly talk to myself about having enough time, and there's plenty of time to do the things that are important and that are a priority. And I really limit the things that I commit to so that my priorities stay in alignment. And I say all of that because you do have to create self-awareness. If you want to actually be somebody who does something and doesn't just talk the talk, but actually walks the walk, you have to get self-aware, and not in a critical sense. This is simply, and I teach this to my kids as well as my clients, self-awareness can be as simple as the end of the day going, okay, how did today feel? Was it a good day? Was it a great day? Was it an exhausting day? All right, cool, right? So you check in with yourself at the end of the day. How did today feel? Okay. And then what worked? What didn't work? What can I do differently? Those are easy questions to ask yourself to set yourself up for success continuously. So today, I knew last night coming into today that I had a million little things to do. I mean, legitimately little things. There were so many little things that would just take me a couple of minutes. I had to send this email, I had to fill out that form, right? I busted out a bunch of those things in about 15 minutes. Checked off a lot of things on my list, okay? Now, I had a lot of meetings today, a lot of calls that I needed to be on as well. And so I just knew, okay, hey, in between these things, I've got to get up, I've got to move myself, I've got to get my lunch, right? Like, I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about the thing I had to do. I just did the thing. And that's where we get caught, because we have lists of all the things that we should be doing. But if you give yourself a little bit of structure and batch those things together, it makes your life so much easier. So, for instance, The reminders on my phone. I knew this morning that I wanted to run after the kids were out to school, but I had to be done before 9 o'clock because I had a 9:15 call. Okay. Also knowing my 9:15 call was going until 10:15, or getting into a little nitty gritty here, you're just going to have to handle it. And so all the things that I needed to do on my computer, I set those reminders at 10:15 because I knew I was going to be sitting here at my computer already doing those things. Now, there are other things. There are other text messages and just phone calls that I can make this afternoon while I'm sitting in the car at the pickup line, because I won't have anything else there, right? Or if I get those things done on the way to school, making a few phone calls, checking in, right? Then I can sit in the pickup line and read a book. So I don't give myself a reminder to do something unless I'm already doing something similar to that. Because it's a moot point to remind myself at 2 o'clock to, I don't even know, fold the laundry, right? Because at 2 o'clock, I'm trying to wind down my work for the day because I'm going to go pick up the kids soon, and I'll be in after-school mom mode. So if I know I'm going to the grocery store on Monday, I'm going to put a reminder in my phone to buy things at the grocery store on Monday. It's okay to have that routine. It actually creates sanity for you. And then you're not overthinking. We have these beautiful things that we're carrying around in our pockets all the time called phones that are smart. And they have all these little applications on them that you can use to remind yourself of this, to remind yourself of that. The reason I use all of these reminders and I put deadlines on them is so that I can be present with my kids when they're home. That's it. That's my main goal. So that I'm not thinking about forgetting the thing because I didn't write it down and I'm convinced I'm not going to forget the thing. Just talk to your phone. Write it down when you think of the thing. This is something that I teach my clients, especially when they're moms. Hey, I know inspiration's going to hit you at the worst possible time. It's going to hit you when you're in the middle of making dinner, where you can't get to your computer and type out that beautiful post that just came to mind, right? I know it's going to hit you then. And so what you do is you give yourself a little reminder, jot down a couple of words, and then when you are sitting at your computer and you're in content creation mode, you tap back into that thought, and guess what? It shows up. Now, it does require a little bit of training. You do have to teach yourself these things, right? But I promise you it's worth it. Because I can think of something, for instance, these podcast episodes came to me last night, literally while I was brushing my teeth. Brushing my teeth and these ideas came to me. And part of me was like, well, I could just hop on my computer and record them now. No, I was brushing my teeth. I wanted to go to bed. And so instead, I wrote down a couple of notes on my phone. And guess what? I fell asleep pretty quickly because I knew I wasn't going to forget about the topic. Additionally, I keep a notepad and pen by my bed because without fail, most nights I will lay down and all of a sudden all of these incredible ideas will come to me. And if I don't write them down, I don't fall asleep. So it's easier for me to just click the light back on, write down a couple of things, and come back to them tomorrow, right? Instead of overthinking the fact that you're going to forget about it in the morning, and then you wake up in the morning and you forgot about the thing that was a really great idea the night before. You know. So why don't you set yourself up for success? Give yourself reminders at times that you're actually doing it so that you can get the thing done and then it doesn't take any other time. You don't have to overthink the things. Overthinking is simply a procrastination tool. It's also, you're not going to like this one, being lazy. If you sit there and overthink the thing, you never actually have to do the thing. Right? So, stop overthinking it. Just do it. I was talking to I was talking to a client last week about it. I was like, just do 5 minutes. Whatever the thing is. Chances are if you're just doing that thing for 5 minutes, you're going to be good. Now, I could spiral off into a whole nother conversation here about time management and the inability to actually multitask and all these other things. But what I want you to realize are a couple of things from this episode. One, you're gonna have to modify whatever plan you have. My sourdough is an example. I had a plan. I had instructions that I was told would work. They didn't work for my starter. So I had to modify those plans. And once I modified the plans, guess what? Sourdough is real easy for me now. I say that I've made 2 successful loaves of bread. But after about 6 weeks of failure, it's real easy now because I know, okay, my sourdough needs warm water and a bit more flour than water ratio. And additionally, less water to flour when I'm actually making the loaf, right? So I had a plan, but I modified it for me. That's number 1. Okay? That includes that self-awareness part that I talked about before. If you are trying to follow somebody else's exact plan, it's probably not going to work for you. I talk about this a lot. Get a plan, modify it to you. Have awareness around this. Right? My husband and I are getting ready to start another project. And I've already mapped out a few weeks of just learning it. Of getting my feet wet, knowing that there's going to be a learning curve. And then probably in a couple months, I'm going to have this down really efficient and really effective, and it's going to be smooth sailing. There'll be a couple of hiccups. I'm not above saying that, right? I know there's going to be some hiccups and some learning curves as we integrate things, right? But I also have so many systems in place right now that allow me so much free time. And it's this dance between the masculine and the feminine energies. You've heard me talk about this before. So, if there's something that you want to do, again, check in with yourself. Is this something you really want to do? Or are you just doing it because somebody else is doing it? Right? Like, I really wanted to do the sourdough, so I was going to push through it. Even though multiple times I was like, this sucks. I'm not going to do it. I'll just go buy sourdough bread, right? Like, but it's really rewarding and I love it. It's yummy, right? And so check in with yourself. Is it really something that you want to do, or are you jumping on the bandwagon? It's okay if you don't want to do it. Be honest with yourself. Okay? And then find a plan. Use AI. Google something. Somebody else's plan. Whatever it is, the thing that you want to do, there's a plan for it. Modify it to yourself. I was just on a call earlier today. We were talking about the Profit First book, right? There's a great formula for budgeting the money coming into a business. Awesome. I love that formula. It's going to be modified a little bit to fit the strategy that I'm looking for. But there's already a plan out there. You have to make it your own. Your relationship with yourself has to be strong enough that you can make these plans your own and know it's going to work. So start with you. How is your relationship with yourself? Does it suck? Okay, that's fine. I've been there. Work on it. Figure out what it is that you really want. Okay, so I'm going to sign off here. I got a couple more meetings to jump to, but I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye, love.